Sabrina the Animated Series, Episode 15. Harvey's friend is somehow able to believe in blatantly untrue paranormal things reported on by a newspaper. It goes on long enough to make you enjoy when the stereotypical bully hits him even though hitting is wrong. Sabrina uses magic to embarrass him so that everyone at the table laughs. What was the point of this scene? Sabrina wonders why her family is going through so much trouble cleaning the house. Zelda uses magic, so it's hypocritical that Sabrina is forced to dust the normal way. It's explained that their uncle is the head of the family and sucks. I also get to see Harvey's annoying friend fall, and Harvey shows morality by going after someone that wronged him. This kid looks like a really bad ripoff of Miles from the Sabrina sitcom. Miles had a normal voice, making me care about him. This guy, fuck him, I'm calling him Miles because I don't know his name. Miles notices a UFO and wants to follow it, and it turns out to be the flying chair of Sabrina's uncle, which crashes through the house without him caring about the fact that his family will have to use magic to fix it up. He calls this place a pigsty and says some honor, even though he should know he caused this house to look bad. He insults Hilda for being single, says he'll speak slowly because Sabrina's half witch, which doesn't even mean if he's not going to speak slowly when talking to her from now on, and refers to Quigley in an insulting way that sadly doesn't match his personality. If witches are more advanced than mortals, then it would make sense that he thinks mortals are idiots. He says that since he's mortal, he'll be dead soon. Why doesn't he make a big deal out of a mortal knowing about witches? Apparently, this is normal in the animated series universe. He's also surprised at Salem being here. Zelda's upset because he got rid of her furniture. He also tells Quigley to make him a sandwich, and Sabrina's ordered to carry his luggage. This writer was working something out. Why does this guy have to be so unlikable if there's so much focus on him, with no slapstick against him? Looney Tunes is way better than this because it constantly gives villains punishment, and while I get wanting to punish these characters, silly cartoon slapstick would be better. Then the story goes back to blatantly wasting my time. Sabrina has no excuse for going back to her house until her uncle leaves. She could zap up her own food and water. She agrees to go along with her friend, who tells her that this is a drawing of the UFO. And she says she agreed because he's her friend, because he's Harvey's friend. She finds out she agreed to hunt down her own family. Zelda's told that the jerk needs his nail clippers. I guess he doesn't want to waste magic by catering to himself. I don't know why the many witches in his family are working hard for him, when every witch is equally powerful, equally capable of turning another into a frog. So what makes him think he can treat people that way? I get to see Quigley get warped to another dimension. Sadly, the scene instantly ends, and it's not really shown why he'd hate it there other than him being away from home. It seems like a vacation to me because he doesn't have to serve on him anymore. Miles activates the device, and Harvey says Sabrina because the device figures out Sabrina is paranormal. It has to be that a witch made it. It'd be lazy writing if, like in the sitcom, they don't explain that. Conveniently, somehow Miles assumes the device needs to be tinkered with, while in the sitcom when this happened, all of Sabrina's friends instantly got afraid of her and shunned her. Why did Sabrina's hair get changed? Sabrina says at least he tweaked it so that it won't pick up her signals anymore. Why didn't she get written to do that? You're supposed to make the main character be a little competent at least. How am I supposed to think it makes sense then that the device will pick up their signals because they aren't half witches? Because if half witches are different in any way, it has to be because they're half as powerful, so they would be picked up easier. I guess Sabrina's aunt is kidding herself saying that Miles can't really be a threat. The uncle says that Miles is a threat, and they have to turn him to a frog. The uncle agrees to leave Miles alone for a little while because he wants someone to perform a disgusting chore on his back. I assume the reason he's not just saying, let's erase his memory, is that he hates mortals that much. I have to assume the device is immune to magic, so good thing that first episode exists. I guess I assume it's always with him, so they can't just warp to it and smash it with a hammer. And so far, it hasn't been explained that they can freeze time and do that anyways. But it needs to be explained that the device was made by a witch who hates witches, because otherwise it couldn't possibly be immune to magic. Sabrina throws out a magic beam to lure Miles away from her house. Because it doesn't make him give up, this ends up pointless anyways. Sabrina instantly thinks to start firing beams of magic to get the guy to chase after it. But you'd think that the device would still keep detecting it coming from her house, and he'd be more interested in continuing to go after the bigger source of magic. If she can do that, it makes sitcom Sabrina look stupid for not doing it. You'd think her saying that he tinkered with it so it wouldn't detect her would mean something. Mean that it can't detect her magic beams either, if it can't even detect the place where the largest amount of that same magic it's detecting is. So it should have been Hilda going along with Miles invisibly and doing this. Harvey wonders if the UFO already left, and it's polite to say that he isn't saying it wasn't here. He usually wears a shirt with an alien face on it, so I'd expect Harvey to be the one with this device. He even believed in aliens in a few issues of the 70s comic. The uncle asks who touched his chair, and we get shown Miles. Hilda says all she did was fluff his pillows. He gets mad at her for ruining centuries of work because it takes forever to break in a chair. It sadly is realistic that someone would get mad about something that they've known for centuries being changed just because. But it's not realistic that a warlock would get furious because he can just use magic to instantly return it to normal. I just have to assume that the launch of the rocket was just because he's mad. But it's forced that he would make that happen if he was mad rather than causing an explosion. Miles makes a call, and then the uncle says he isn't totally displeased and he won't smite them. At least his temper can calm down confusingly fast. Is he bipolar? There's no way a ton of people will come to Sabrina's house just because one kid with a crazy reputation made one call that nobody would believe. This would only make sense if someone filmed what happened. Ironically, it should have been Jem. She could have witnessed what he did. Finally, Sabrina calls the uncle a sour-faced old bully who doesn't know what it's like to have friends. She says the only reason people put up with him is fear and that she's not afraid of him. He says nobody spoke to him like that in a while, and it seems he'll inexplicably like it, because her grandma liked it in the comic. But he says he'll hate it. He plans to use magic on the mortals outside the house. Salem said everyone in the city was here. I'm sure using magic against all of them would piss off the head witch by making magic too obvious. Sabrina says, "I'm sorry, Pie." What, is his name freaking Pie? Sabrina uses magic on a satellite dish. It fires magic at the magnet beam, he ends up falling, and the device burns itself and a radio signal talks to him. People laugh, and one says it's a radio signal and it gets abandoned. Harvey doesn't believe him, and he obviously needed to lie to him that he did believe him. It's condescending of him to just say, "I believe that you believe." The uncle says Sabrina should have turned Miles into Bean Dip and wonders what happened to family values, when he doesn't mean what we'd mean. He's got Hilda's personality from the 70s, but with none of the charm or charming moments. He notices there's almost no food. He says he's leaving, because I guess he cares so much about not wasting magic zapping up food. And none of the family will ever see him again. How did the plot even happen? Not to mention he could tell them to zap up food for him. Salem says he needs him to beg the Witches' Council to return him to normal. Miles sees the flying chair. Why does Sabrina tell him to take a picture of it? She even summons a camera for him to use, so that Harvey can say wow about seeing a picture of it in a magazine. He says he's sorry he doubted him. At least this is harmless. People assume it's aliens instead, even though it's a flying chair, so it looks way more like a magical thing. But it makes sense because belief in aliens is far more common than belief in witches nowadays. But still very weird that any Sabrina would help someone get proof of witchcraft made public. This story is annoying because it centers on two unlikable characters, as it's about Sabrina's friend using a device that detects magic somehow with no explanation for why, just like the sitcom. And Sabrina's evil uncle just abusing her family by ordering them to slave on him while giving them unprovoked insults. And it has too much focus on that. but a part of me actually liked it because I've got grudges against all of these idiots. They should have been shown doing something to deserve it, though. The concept of Sabrina's family having a head of the family has been done in the sitcom and better. He isn't constantly using magic, so he doesn't look awesome. The matriarch in the sitcom spent a long time abusing Harvey over him knowing Sabrina's a witch. This guy just acts like a typical cranky old man. Why doesn't he always live here if he wants to be slaved over? I have to assume he has servants back home, too. It should have been explained that the reason the witches don't just turn him into a powerless object is that it's illegal, and they think they'd be found out. People would miss him, apparently. At least the show using stories from the sitcom sort of makes me feel better about not being able to review it, because I'm getting to give my thoughts on those episodes anyways. At least I'm not constantly abusing magic means it's not demonizing magic, even though it does make Harvey's friend look like an idiot, so for most of the episode, yeah, it is demonizing magic. It's tame compared to most of the bad episodes of the show, though. Sabrina the Animated Series, Episode 16. It starts with some guy doing an announcement about the place Sabrina's going to, which takes too long since it's just a mall. Harvey looks relatable by looking forward to the arcade. Zelda calls them kids, and there's no reason Sabrina would say she's not a kid if she is, for no good reason meta-wise. Someone's stuck in the doorway, so Sabrina uses magic to solve the problem in a way that makes magic too obvious, even for Harvey. To be fair, no one has any way of knowing the magic was from her, so I get her not even being punished. Plus, no one believes in witches, so they would think it's demons at worst. For once, their ants have different personalities, because while Zelda says her name disapprovingly, Hilda says, "cool move." Sabrina ends up seeing a clown who has a voice so stupid that I can't understand him. He gets relatable when he says he hates his job, basically. Then Sabrina's told no adult, no game. I get why she doesn't zap one up, because it's in public and Harvey's nearby. That's also why she couldn't just turn herself into an adult. He makes a suggestion which gets her to follow him, try to buy a CD. The guy at the desk is somehow openly judgmental, saying its name condescendingly. It's hard to believe he'd be so bad at customer service. Surely he'd have to constantly deal with customers who don't share his musical tastes. I guess he only sticks with a job because he can't find any other job, or think of another one he'd like. At least she finds her a CD. And Harvey gets to enjoy listening to music. But somehow she can't even buy the CD because she's too young. Harvey even admits that that's dumb. Now I'm gonna look it up. I googled it and got nothing. Like with the game that's no adult, no game, I have to assume that she didn't know there would be adult mature content in it that wouldn't actually appeal to her, and that's why she tried to get it in the first place. She just seems too goody-goody to want a mature CD or to play a mature game. She isn't allowed to see a movie she wants either. It makes no sense that even when she's separated from Harvey and other mortals, she still doesn't shapeshift into an adult, even though she shapeshifts in one of the previous episodes. So the plot would have gone a completely different way if it was written with talent. Not to mention she would have just zapped up the stuff she wanted to buy, and I just have to assume she didn't do that because she thinks it'd be wrong to do that when she could just pay for them. But again, she could just write down a reminder to herself saying, "Pay for them when I'm an adult." Sabrina says that if she was an adult, she'd get to do whatever she wanted. Somehow the adult in front of her doesn't instantly tell her that she's wrong, because she'd still have a boss in most cases telling her what to do anyways. And she might still hate her job even if she was self-employed. Harvey then comforts Sabrina and Zelda tells her it's time to leave, even though the two of them want to do a lot more here. Sabrina complains to Salem. He refuses to show her compassion because he's busy goofing off. And when she says he doesn't remember being a kid, he says spitefully that she doesn't have the brains to know when she's got a maid, and talks in a clearly spiteful tone before handing her a magical ticket to adulthood. Does he not remember how awful it was to do schoolwork and homework? I mean, he's not even a typical adult because he doesn't have a job to put up with. So why would he be jealous of her being a kid? It's been centuries since he was an adult, so he wouldn't even remember how much it sucks to be an adult. He says that she has to undo the spell before 24 hours or she'll be stuck that way. There's no way in hell that'd be the case. Witches would be complaining about that in droves. The Witches' Council wouldn't want them to be stuck that way, and they wouldn't force every witch to cast a spell to make this have to be the case for every ticket like this. Salem would have just been able to cast a spell for her that would not have the 24-hour limit. So he gave her this ticket just to be extra spiteful. But that's redundant when she's gonna hate her time anyways. Sabrina goes to her new house and finds out that her house with Harvey is too small because it's all he could afford with his lame job as a door-to-door salesman. It was normal for him to be a loser in the 70s comic. His acting is so bad when he says that next thing he knew he was all grown up. And when he says what about the kids. Usually speaking with too little emotion is Sabrina's thing. Also, the kids are horribly misbehaving unrealistically much. And Harvey says she can't take them to a PG-13 movie. Why couldn't she have gone to the PG-13 movie anyways, since Harvey was right there to babysit her kids? If she was smart, she'd brainwash him to agree to do that and go anyways. There's been episodes of the show where she's fine with brainwashing, so she wouldn't not do that, when she even brainwashes Quigley. Sabrina also says she doesn't know how to cook because she's just 12. Okay, but her aunts could have taught her how, so this still could have been avoided. But I don't know how to cook, so this isn't forced. It's just that Sabrina shouldn't have been written to say this is the case because she's a kid. It pretends that every kid doesn't know how to cook, and therefore this is a fair challenge for her. Sabrina finds out she can't use magic because of the spell, so the spell isn't accurately portraying adulthood for her. It already wasn't, because she would know how to cook by now most likely if she was an adult. But to be fair, her magic wouldn't have fixed all of her problems here. She might still think she's too moral to brainwash her kids into being good, because her aunts didn't do that to her. And she'd be an adult by that point, so she might have changed from how she is now. Then the adult in front of her says that eating pizza as an adult has to go straight to your hips. So, when Sabrina really grows up, she'll zap away any weight she gained anyways. Besides, it's not even a guarantee that eating pizza as an adult will have to go straight to your hips. Sabrina tries to play an arcade game, and somehow, it's totally unrealistic that the teenagers tell her that she's not supposed to play the game because she's an adult. First off, how does the writer not know that adults play video games all the time? Second, how did the teenagers even know that she wasn't a teenager? She isn't drawn to look that much older. Besides, if she had her magic, she'd just zap him anyways and get on with it. And it's also unrealistic that Harvey somehow knew to come here and tell her that the kids are getting cranky so she has to come home. He's so selfish. Then instead of Sabrina simply playing a game on a console or computer, she doesn't. The washing machine overflows with bubbles because Sabrina doesn't know how to use it, when an accurate portrayal of adulthood would magically make her know how. She gets talked to over the phone and eventually says she needs money for the rent. The story is even more unreasonably sadistic because somehow she's working for Jem. Jem won't settle for a job as the boss in office. And Sabrina's overwhelmed with paperwork, after she somehow got hired right away with no real credentials. I assume that makes sense though because Jem wanted to get to bully her every day. Then Sabrina wants to go to the bathroom and makes a call, and gets told by Jem that she'd have to get a piece of paper to go to the bathroom in the office. Somehow she gets handed money right away and goes to a bank. Somehow, the bank teller keeps taking away the dollar bills she would have gotten right in front of her, continuously saying that it's taxes. To be fair, Salem gave her the ticket. So all this needlessly mean stuff can be explained away as Salem making this miserable for her on purpose to guarantee out of spite that she'll hate being an adult. And it doesn't even have to be out of spite, because if she liked being an adult, she would stay this way forever. And if she did, her aunts would go ballistic on him for taking her away from them, sending her to a parallel universe, where she must have replaced her alternate self. She's gotta be gone forever because time isn't progressing in the old universe. Sabrina somehow doesn't immediately have access to her way to get home. She sees a photo from the photo album and realizes that she missed out on every big milestone of a kid's life, because somehow she isn't part of any of those photos. even though she would have been here because she replaced her alternate universe self. Hence why Harvey isn't questioning why he's married to her. So that self would have had photos of herself in the album. But this could be explained away as Salem made it this way because he knew she'd react like this. Salem had her get sent to a universe like this to increase the chance that she'd regret the spell. She goes from going into a cab to asking a kid for a skateboard. Somehow the kid calls her an old lady. And I don't see why a cop starts going after her. She finds the stopwatch and says a spell and turns it. Why does the watch require you to take so long to activate it, when time could run out on you before you get to activate it? She uses it and somehow she makes a fool out of herself by happily telling Harvey that he looks how he's supposed to look. She says she wants to buy a huge pizza and then rearrange all of her stuffed animals. She also somersaults and says she's enjoying being a kid. But if she stayed fit, she could somersault as an adult too. I knew the title was familiar. It's that episode the mysterious Mr. Enter reviewed. But the title wasn't obvious enough about what the premise would be about. And it's yet another mean-spirited episode of the show that only exists to shove a message down your throat. So we had every reason to hate it. But this episode isn't so bad of an example of that as a lot of the other stories in the series with the same problem. At least here, all the times where the story was unrealistically mean to Sabrina could have been easily explained as Salem had the ticket maker go to a reality like this on purpose, to guarantee that she'll want to go back to her old life. While Mr. Enter felt like Salem was just being a dick, and it did seem like Salem was being spiteful and really wanted to prove to her that adulthood sucked, the family would tear Salem a new one if Sabrina didn't decide to return to her old life. Even if he wasn't spiteful, he'd still have every incentive to make sure she had a miserable time. And he might have felt bad about simply brainwashing her out of wanting to be an adult. So unlike the rest of the show, where there's no excuse for her life being so miserable, at least this episode makes sense. Her not having powers while she's an adult prevents the plot from making me wonder why she's not casting spells to make her life easier, when really she'd avoid most of these problems. I've seen worse episodes, but this is still relentlessly annoying. But out of universe, when it comes to how the message is being given to the audience, Mr. Enter's right to hate how the message is mean and heavy-handed. The message that you should enjoy being a kid while it lasts is a good one, encouraging having fun. But it fails to show off the good things about being an adult. There's plenty of people who aren't adult yet who are depressed. And the last thing they need is an episode telling them that they have nothing to look forward to in life. The episode needed to have more time in its ending instead of wasting a bunch of time with Sabrina inexplicably losing her watch and needing it back. After she got home, she should have been told that when she grows up, she won't have to live in a small house or get a job, because she'd have tons of money from pawning off jewelry she'd zap up. Or even just family heirlooms. Also, it's very unlikely that she'd have tons of poorly behaved kids, especially if she can talk Harvey into birth control. But I guess was going with the assumption that the birth control didn't work. The audience should have been told that not everyone's guaranteed to have kids. She would have gone to the movies anyways because Harvey was there to watch them. In fact, she goes to the arcade anyways. The audience also should have been told that not everyone's guaranteed to hate their job. But I'm sure most people do. And it's still possible that someone could have a life like this.